Ellis Mercer rubbed the back of his neck, staring at the contract displayed on his tablet. The job offer had appeared in his inbox 3 standard days ago, and the compensation package made his eyes widen. 6,000 credits for 3 months of work, nearly double what he'd make in a year back on Earth Colony 7. Mr. Mercer, the holographic representative of Vrixi diplomatic relations, blinked patiently on his screen. Have you reached a decision? Just confirming details, Ellis said, scrolling through the contract again. I provide dermal maintenance services for visiting Vrixi diplomats, 6 hours per day, 5 days per week. Correct, your qualifications as a licensed dermatological technician make you uniquely suited for this position. Ellis barely suppressed a laugh. His 6-month certification in dermoplastic therapy hardly qualified him as an expert, but apparently that was enough for the Vrixi. The station was desperate for someone with his skills, which explained the generous salary. And the supplies, the special oils mentioned here. All provided, the representative confirmed. The Vrixi bring their own maintenance materials. You simply need to apply them correctly. Ellis nodded. The contract seemed straightforward: clean, polish, and maintain the exterior membranes of the Vrixi delegates. From what he understood, their skin, or whatever they called it, required regular care to prevent desiccation in artificial environments. I accept, Ellis pressed his thumb against the screen, watching as his biometric signature registered. Excellent, transportation to Outpost Helios will depart tomorrow at 800 hours. The hologram flickered. The Vrixi delegation eagerly awaits your arrival, Mr. Mercer. As the transmission ended, Ellis leaned back in his chair. This job was his ticket home. After 3 years working various contracts across the frontier systems, he'd finally have enough credits to return to Earth and start the medical training he'd always wanted. Outpost Helios loomed before him, a sprawling structure of titanium and glass hanging in orbit around the gas giant Tethys IV. As Ellis's transport docked, he caught his first glimpse of the station's inhabitants through the viewport: humans, a few Centaurian merchants, and the unmistakable silhouettes of the Vrixi. Even from a distance, they captivated his attention. Tall, slender beings with semi-translucent skin that rippled with patterns of bioluminescence. Their movements were fluid, almost hypnotic, as they glided through the docking area. First time seeing Vrixi up close, the transport pilot noticed Ellis's stare. Yeah, they're beautiful. The pilot chuckled. Wait until you see them during a celebration. Their skin lights up like the aurora borealis. Just don't stare too long, they consider it impolite. Ellis gathered his belongings and disembarked, following the station's navigation system to his assigned quarters. The room was small but comfortable, with a view of Tethys IV's swirling atmosphere. He had barely finished unpacking when his comm unit chimed. Technician Mercer, welcome to Outpost Helios. This is Administrator Kell. Please report to Medical Suite 7 for orientation in 1 hour. The medical suite turned out to be a spacious chamber with several reclined platforms and shelves lined with containers of various sizes. Administrator Kell, a stern-faced woman with gray-streaked hair, greeted him with a firm handshake. The Vrixi are valuable allies, she explained, leading him through the equipment. Their trade agreements have kept this station profitable for the past decade. Your job is simple but important. Their dermal layers require regular maintenance to prevent discomfort and potential health issues. She handed him a manual. Study this. It details the proper techniques for applying their oils and polishing compounds. Each Vrixi has slightly different needs which they'll communicate to you. Ellis skimmed through the manual. The process seemed straightforward. Apply oil, work it into the skin using specific circular motions, then buff with special cloths to create a protective seal. When do I start? Tomorrow morning, 8 appointments scheduled. Kell's expression softened slightly. Don't be nervous. The Vrixi are gentle beings. Just follow the protocols and you'll do fine. As Ellis left the medical suite, he passed a Vrixi in the corridor. Up close, their skin was even more remarkable, a translucent layer through which he could see faint traces of internal structures, all overlaid with patterns of light that shifted and pulsed with each movement. The Vrixi inclined their head in greeting, their skin momentarily brightening. Ellis returned the gesture, unaware that he had just taken his first step into a cultural dance far more complex than he could imagine. Luminous Touch. Part 2: Strange Behaviors. 2 weeks into his contract, Ellis had settled into a comfortable routine. The work was easier than he'd anticipated, therapeutic, even. Each morning he prepared the suite, arranging the oils and polishing cloths according to the day's schedule. His Vrixi clients were unfailingly polite, always arriving precisely on time. They would position themselves on the reclined platforms, their skin dimming to a soft glow as they relaxed under his touch. "Is the pressure comfortable, Ambassador Nelith?" Ellis asked as he worked the shimmering oil into the Vrixi diplomat's shoulder region. "Most satisfactory," Nelith replied, their voice a melodic hum. "Your technique has improved significantly since our first session." Ellis smiled at the compliment. He had indeed grown more confident in his movements, learning how to follow the natural contours of Vrixi physiology. What had initially been clinical and mechanical now felt more like an art form. As Ellis's hands moved in practice circles across Nelith's back, he noticed something curious. The ambassador had begun emitting a low, vibrating tone, almost like purring. The sound resonated through Ellis's fingertips, creating an odd connection between them. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "Perfectly so," Nelith responded, the luminescent patterns beneath their skin pulsing slightly brighter. "Please continue." By the end of the session, Ellis observed that the ambassador's skin was glowing with considerably more intensity than when they had arrived. The patterns, usually gentle waves of blue and green, now included vibrant streaks of amber and gold. Similar peculiarities appeared with increasing frequency during his subsequent appointments. His third client that day, a Vrixi scientist named Morith, began swaying rhythmically as Ellis applied the final polishing cloth. "Does the movement help distribute the oil?" Ellis asked, trying to understand. Morith's skin flushed a deep violet. "It is a natural response. Your touch is most harmonious." That evening in the station's communal dining area, Ellis noticed his Vrixi clients behaving differently toward him. They acknowledged him with deeper bows than they offered other humans, and their skin patterns seemed to intensify whenever he passed nearby. "You've become popular," observed Damien, a human technician who'd been stationed on Helios for 3 years. "Never seen the Vrixi warm up to someone so quickly." "I'm just doing my job," Ellis said, picking at his synthetic protein meal. Damien leaned closer. "You know, before you arrived, they requested a new technician 3 times. Apparently the previous ones weren't compatible." Ellis frowned. Compatible? The manual didn't mention compatibility issues. "Who knows with aliens?" Damien shrugged. "But whatever you're doing, keep it up. The whole station benefits when the Vrixi are happy." The following day brought the strangest behavior yet. During a session with a Vrixi elder named Vorith, 2 other Vrixi entered the suite without appointment and positioned themselves at the perimeter of the room. "Apologies," Ellis said, pausing his work. "This area is reserved for scheduled maintenance only." "They are here with my permission," Vorith explained. "They wish to observe your technique." Ellis hesitated but continued working. As his hands glided across Vorith's iridescent skin, the 2 observers began moving in a slow, circular pattern around the platform. Their movements were precise, almost ritualistic, and synchronized with Ellis's application of the oils. By the end of the session, 4 more Vrixi had joined the observers, all moving in the same rhythmic pattern. When Ellis completed the final polish on Vorith's skin, the observers stopped simultaneously, their skin pulsing in unified flashes of brilliant turquoise. "Thank you, Technician Mercer," Vorith said, rising from the platform. The elder's skin now radiated with intensity Ellis had never witnessed before. "Your service honors us deeply." After they departed, Ellis stood alone in the suite, oil-stained cloths in his hands, thoroughly confused by what had just transpired. Something significant was happening, something well beyond simple dermal maintenance, but he couldn't begin to guess what it might be. That night, Ellis received a special request in his work queue. Thalira, the Vrixi chief diplomatic envoy, had requested a personal maintenance session for the following day. According to the station records, this marked the first time in 5 years that the envoy had requested such a service from a human technician. As Ellis prepared for sleep, the patterns of light he had observed throughout the day continued to dance behind his closed eyelids, beautiful and mysterious, much like the Vrixi themselves. Ellis arrived at the maintenance suite an hour early to prepare for Thalira's appointment. He'd spent the previous evening studying what little information the station database contained about the chief diplomatic envoy, a position of immense respect among both the Vrixi and the interstellar diplomatic community. He selected the finest grades of polishing oils, arranging them in precise order. His hands trembled slightly as he calibrated the suite's atmospheric controls to the exact temperature and humidity levels preferred by high-ranking Vrixi. "You appear anxious, Technician Mercer." Ellis startled at the voice. A Vrixi he didn't recognize stood in the doorway, their skin a subdued palette of deep blues and purples. "I'm Jorith, senior advisor to Envoy Thalira," they introduced themselves, gliding into the room. "I've come to ensure all is prepared for her maintenance ritual." Ritual, Ellis repeated, the word catching his attention. I thought this was a standard dermal maintenance session. Jorith's skin flickered briefly. There is nothing standard about your service to our people, Technician Mercer. Surely you've noticed the response you evoke. Before Ellis could press for clarification, a soft chime announced the arrival of more Vrixi. To his astonishment, 12 of them entered the suite, arranging themselves in a perfect circle around the central platform. What's happening? Ellis whispered to Jorith. The circle of resonance, Jorith replied quietly. It is traditional when one of significant standing undergoes the luminous touch. The gathered Vrixi began a soft, harmonic humming that seemed to make the very air vibrate. The sound resonated in Ellis's chest, simultaneously calming and energizing him. Then Thalira entered. Ellis had seen images of the chief envoy, but they did no justice to her presence. Taller than most Vrixi, Thalira moved with fluid grace, her skin exhibiting complex patterns that shifted between deep azure and radiant gold. Unlike the more common translucence of her species, Thalira's skin possessed an opalescent quality that scattered light in mesmerizing ways. The room fell silent as she approached Ellis. Technician Mercer, she greeted him, her voice melodious and clear. I am pleased to finally experience your touch firsthand. Your reputation resonates throughout our delegation. Ellis bowed slightly, suddenly aware of the gravity of the moment. The honor is mine, envoy Thalira. As Thalira positioned herself on the platform, the circle of Vrixi resumed their humming, now incorporating subtle movements that rippled through their formation like waves. Ellis began his work with trembling hands that gradually steadied as he fell into the familiar rhythm of the process. He started with the lightest oil, applying it in gentle circular motions across Thalira's shoulders. The moment his fingers made contact with her skin, the luminescence beneath responded dramatically, swirling in patterns he'd never witnessed before. The circling Vrixi intensified their movements, their own skin patterns synchronizing with Thalira's. Your touch is unlike any I have experienced, Thalira murmured, her voice carrying a depth of emotion Ellis hadn't heard from any Vrixi before. It resonates with perfect harmony. As Ellis progressed through the maintenance procedure, the room's atmosphere transformed. The humming grew more complex, layered with tones that seemed to penetrate Ellis's very being. The movements of the circle evolved into an elaborate dance, with Vrixi gliding in intricate patterns around the platform. When Ellis reached for the final polishing cloth, Jorith stepped forward, presenting instead a small vessel of iridescent fluid Ellis had never seen before. This is Lumina Essence, Jorith explained reverently, reserved for the most significant of bonding ceremonies. Ellis hesitated, the weight of unknown cultural implications heavy in his hands. I'm not trained in its application. Your hands already know the way, Thalira assured him, her skin pulsing with anticipation. Trust in the connection we share. With careful movements, Ellis applied the essence to Thalira's skin. The effect was immediate and breathtaking, her entire form illuminated with cascading waves of light that matched the rhythm of his touch. The circle of Vrixi responded in kind, their combined luminescence filling the room with prismatic brilliance. Ellis lost track of time as he completed the ritual, his consciousness merging with the rhythm of the ceremony. When he finally applied the last stroke, the room fell into perfect silence. Thalira rose from the platform and faced him. Her skin now radiated a warm, golden glow that seemed to reach out to him across the space between them. The resonance is true, she announced, her voice carrying a formal tone. The gathered Vrixi responded with a unified pulse of light. As Ellis stood there, surrounded by the ceremonial circle and facing the luminous form of Thalira, he knew with absolute certainty that he had just participated in something far more significant than a simple maintenance session, though he still couldn't begin to understand what it meant. The maintenance suite emptied slowly. The Vrixi departed in pairs, their skin still glowing with residual energy from the ceremony. Soon, only Ellis, Thalira, and Jorith remained. I think it's time someone explained what just happened, Ellis said, his voice steady despite the thundering of his heart. That wasn't a standard maintenance session. Thalira and Jorith exchanged glances, their skin patterns shifting in what Ellis had come to recognize as a form of silent communication. Perhaps we have been inconsiderate of your cultural understanding, Jorith acknowledged, approaching Ellis. Please sit with us. They moved to a small seating area in the corner of the suite. Ellis lowered himself onto a cushioned bench, facing the two Vrixi who settled across from him. Technician Mercer Ellis, Thalira began, her voice gentle. In our culture, touch carries profound significance. The sharing of touch is never casual, particularly the type of touch you have been providing. Ellis felt a growing uneasiness. What exactly have I been doing these past weeks? To polish another's skin is an intimate gesture of acceptance, Jorith explained carefully. In our culture, it is a vital step in selecting a mate. The words hit Ellis like a physical blow. He stared at them, trying to process the implications. You're saying I've been, what, dating the entire Vrixi delegation? Thalira's skin rippled with what Ellis now recognized as amusement. Not precisely. The initial maintenance serves as an assessment of compatibility. Those who found resonance with your touch returned for additional sessions, deepening the connection. And today's ceremony, Ellis asked, dreading the answer. A formal declaration of profound compatibility, Thalira said, her skin flushing with warm gold tones. Between you and me. Ellis stood abruptly, packing the small area. He struggled to find words. Why didn't anyone tell me? We believed Administrator Kell had explained, Jorith said, appearing genuinely concerned. This position has always involved potential bonding assessment. Previous technicians understood this. Well, she definitely left that part out of my orientation, Ellis said, running a hand through his hair. I thought I was just helping with medical care. Your touch transcended mere maintenance, Thalira said, rising to her full height. Up close, her luminescence was even more captivating, patterns flowing beneath her skin like cosmic nebulae. From your very first session, your hands spoke with exceptional eloquence to our essence. Despite his confusion, Ellis couldn't deny the connection he'd felt while working with the Vrixi. The resonance, the synchronicity, it had always felt like more than just physical maintenance. Even without understanding, you responded to us, Jorith observed. Your hands adjusted to our patterns, your rhythm matched our internal pulses. Such natural harmony is exceedingly rare between species. Ellis stopped packing, so all those sessions, the humming, the circling. Courtship responses, Thalira confirmed. And today's ceremony was the luminous accord, a declaration of my desire to form a deeper bond. Ellis sank back onto the bench. With me, but you're the chief diplomatic envoy. I'm just a technician with a basic certification. Titles mean little in matters of resonance, Thalira said, moving closer to him. Her proximity sent a wave of warmth through his body. What matters is the harmony between essences. Among our kind, such connections are not chosen but discovered, Jorith added. The resonance between you and Thalira is extraordinarily powerful, stronger than any I have witnessed between a Vrixi and a human. Ellis looked up at Thalira, whose luminescence seemed to reach out to him like tendrils of light. For the first time, he allowed himself to acknowledge the strange connection he'd felt with her from the moment she entered the room. What happens now? He asked quietly. Thalira extended her hand, palm upward. In it rested a small crystal that pulsed with the same rhythm as the patterns beneath her skin. This is a resonance crystal, she explained. It contains the harmonic signature of our connection. Accepting it signifies your willingness to explore the bond between us. Ellis stared at the crystal, its light hypnotic and inviting. If you accept, Jorith said, you would remain here not as a technician but as Thalira's chosen companion. Your contract would be dissolved and a new position created, cultural liaison to the Vrixi diplomatic corps. And if I don't, Ellis asked. Then we acknowledge the dissonance and part ways with respect, Thalira answered, though her skin dimmed noticeably at the suggestion. We would never bind an unwilling essence to ours. Ellis gazed at the crystal, then at Thalira's luminous form. What had begun as a simple job had evolved into something he never could have imagined, an invitation to a relationship with a being from another world, one whose touch had already begun to change him in ways he was only starting to understand. For 3 days, Ellis sequestered himself in his quarters, the resonance crystal resting on his nightstand. Its gentle pulsing matched his heartbeat, a constant reminder of the decision he faced. He had come to Outpost Helios with a simple plan: earn credits, return to Earth, attend medical school. Now a different path beckoned, one he hadn't even known existed. On the evening of the 3rd day, a message appeared on his comm unit. No pressure, just tea. My quarters at 1900 hours if you wish. Thalira. Ellis stared at the message for a long moment before responding with a simple affirmative. He showered, dressed in his civilian clothes, and slipped the crystal into his pocket. Thalira's quarters occupied a section of the diplomatic wing, with large viewports overlooking the swirling atmosphere of Tethys IV. When the door slid open, Ellis found her standing by the viewport, her skin's natural luminescence dimmed to a subtle glow. Thank you for coming, she said, gesturing to a small table set with an elegant tea service. I thought a more personal setting might allow for better understanding. Ellis sat across from her, watching as she poured a steaming amber liquid into 2 cups. I have questions. I would be concerned if you didn't, Thalira replied with a small smile. What exactly would this bond entail? Ellis asked, accepting the offered tea. Thalira's skin rippled thoughtfully. Among the Vrixi, bonds form gradually through stages of increasing connection. What we have experienced is only the beginning, a recognition of potential harmony. And physically, Ellis couldn't help asking, his mind returning to the sensations he'd experienced during their maintenance session. Thalira's skin flushed with deep violet hues. Vrixi intimacy is based on resonant touch and energy exchange. It is different from human practices but compatible in surprising ways. Her eyes met his. We would learn together. The implications sent a shiver through Ellis that wasn't entirely unpleasant. How would this work practically? I'm human, you're Vrixi. We have different lifespans, different biological needs. True compatibility doesn't require sameness, Thalira said, reaching across the table. Her fingers hovered near his, not quite touching. The Vrixi live approximately twice the human span, but we believe connection transcends temporal limitations. Ellis felt the warmth emanating from her skin, drawing him in. And if I wanted to visit Earth someday? We would go together, she said simply. My position allows considerable freedom of movement. I have long been curious about your homeworld. They talked for hours as the gas giant's rings cast shifting patterns of light across her quarters. Thalira explained Vrixi customs, their views on partnership, the nature of their physiological connection to others. Ellis shared stories of Earth, his aspirations, his family. As the station's night cycle deepened, Ellis finally reached into his pocket and withdrew the crystal. It pulsed more intensely in proximity to Thalira, casting prismatic patterns across his palm. I still don't fully understand this, he admitted, but I've never felt anything like what happened between us during that maintenance session. It was like finding a piece of myself I never knew was missing. Thalira's skin brightened with hope. That is the resonance speaking. It cannot be falsified or manufactured. Ellis extended his hand, the crystal resting on his palm. If I accept this, what happens next? I place my hand over yours, Thalira explained, her voice soft with emotion. The crystal responds to our combined essence, creating a permanent harmonic link between us. Ellis hesitated only briefly before nodding. I accept. Thalira moved around the table and knelt beside his chair. With deliberate slowness, she placed her luminous hand over his, enveloping the crystal between their palms. The sensation was immediate and overwhelming, a rush of warmth that spiraled up Ellis's arm and spread throughout his body. The crystal flared brilliantly, its light visible even through their joined hands. Ellis gasped as he felt Thalira's essence mingling with his own, creating patterns of energy that flowed between them in perfect harmony. When the light finally dimmed, the crystal had transformed. What had been a simple translucent stone now contained swirling patterns that matched both Thalira's skin and somehow the rhythm of Ellis's heartbeat. The bond is sealed, Thalira whispered, her face close to his. May our resonance grow ever stronger. Acting on instinct, Ellis leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers. The contact sent cascades of light rippling across Thalira's skin, illuminating the room with their combined radiance. Her hands came up to frame his face, her touch sending pleasurable vibrations through his very being. Ellis found himself responding in kind, his fingers tracing the luminous patterns of her skin with newfound understanding. I never expected to find connection so far from home, he murmured against her luminescent skin. Perhaps that is why you traveled so far, she replied, her voice resonating through him. Some journeys lead exactly where we need to be. As her luminescence enveloped him in warmth and her essence intertwined with his, Ellis realized that his simple maintenance job had led him to the most profound connection of his life, one that transcended species, culture, and perhaps even time itself. In the soft glow of their joined energies, with the vast expanse of space visible through the viewport beyond, Ellis embraced his unexpected destiny. What had begun as a misunderstanding had blossomed into something beautiful and rare, a bond between worlds sealed with a luminous touch.